Hey, Leilani with The Magical Solution here. Please go back to the comment and watch any previous videos before this one. This one is part 2. All right, so we left off with the quote-unquote, some of the discoveries that we have figured out, just like throughout the years of the movement being in place, right? And so one of them being sacred geometry. Now, what do I mean by sacred geometry when we're talking about space, when we're talking about, translating physical space to virtual space? What do I mean by that? Essentially, what is being said here is that space is an illusion, or the idea of borders is an illusion. But it is an illusion that is the most easiest to manipulate as a medium, a magician, an alchemist, all these different terms for a mystical person, a person who has influence over the elements or influence in the spiritual realm. There is an awareness that although we exist in a unified field, and that technically the things that separate other things from things, so your skin, the grass is something that separates the air from the soil, right? Like, so anything that creates a barrier, if you will, between two things, and even the concept of things existing technically doesn't exist when you are in this mindset of a unified field. And so being in the physical 3D world and having those type of influences, we have figured out a science in which we can create actual borders. We can cut out time and space from the unified field and create literal bubbles of liminal space. We can do that. All of us can do that, and we do that through sacred geometry, through certain equations, through certain shapes, through certain words and rhythmic chanting. There are ways of manipulating the unified field and pulling out from it sacred space. We can do that. We can do that. Okay? And that is how we normally do our misas, do our masses. Is it not? We gather in a place and we sanctify the space. We sanctify the space. Now, in the real world way of doing that, it's a lot easier for us to sanctify the space because sometimes, the majority of the time, we're doing misa indoors, and so there's already a room with 4 walls and a ceiling and a floor. So there's already a kind of established border and cutout for you. So all you really have to do is just sanctify within those borders, right? So it's easy to make these spaces when you gather in person. Where it becomes difficult is when you're gathering virtually. When you're gathering virtually, this is when you have to revert back to the original thought that everything is a unified field. That space, borders, time, distance, all that stuff does not exist. You have to go back to that way of thinking, where none of that exists. There's just one unified field, and a single thought will project you to the place, or the single thought will call in something to the place instantaneously. There are times where the thing manifests before the thought even happens, because it is already written in the spirit that this is what we want to think, and the spirit is already connected in current to what we're calling. And so it shows up instant-fucking-taneously. Do you understand? There's no need to create these types of spaces in the physical. However, So now, mind you, I am telling you all the philosophical, mystical, esoteric piece of it. But there is something to be said about creating the liminal space in your physical home. And that is actually something that I do require of the mediums who show up to my Misa. So I want to make something really, really clear, right? Like, I don't just let anybody into my Misa. That needs to be made very, very clear. My Misas are not open to the public yet. But they are. They're open to the public, but they're not. I vet every person who wants to join my Misa. I vet them. I talk to them. We get to feel each other out and figure out if this is going to be a good fit, a good vibe. That's number one. Number two, once I do make my decision as to who can come to the Misa and when we're going to have the Misa and what the topic is going to be about, right? I also send an email to all the participants, and I have certain requirements of what they need to do to prep before, during, and after a Misa. What supplies that they need to have in their person, where they need to be, what their altar should be set up as, what they should be wearing. All of that is going to be in this email. And they, on the honor system, must check off this list before entering into the virtual space. That's because what we are doing here, again, sacred geometry, again, understanding that there is a unified field, and within that unified field, there is a repetition of a divine pattern, a repetition of a divine pattern that looks like a spiral, okay? And that repetition of divine patterns allows us to abide by the law of as above, so below. And so essentially we are creating spaces within spaces within spaces within spaces. That's what we're doing when we're in Misa. And so in Misa, we create the space in our home. We sanctify the room that the video conference is going to be in. We have our altar there. We have our stuff there. We have everything that we need in preparation for in the space, right? Then we go into the Misa and we do virtual sanctifying of the space, right? Where we create space in astral etheric form and sanctify that and have that in a situation. Then even further, so there's steps. Do you understand? There's steps to this. So it's spaces within spaces. There's levels and layers of protection, levels and layers of understanding your physical reality. And doing this based on divine laws that have already been discovered and are known in mystical traditions. Because let's not forget, Spiritism, spiritualism, and Espiritismo, they are mystic traditions. They are lifestyles. They are a way of living, similar to the Buddhist philosophy, similar to Taoist philosophy, similar, get what I'm saying? It's a way of living. It's not a thing you do. And so Misa is really, for us, in a way, to be a check-in for our way of living, a check-in for our progression, and a support system for that progression. Okay? All right, so I feel like I've answered a few of the prerequisite stuff that will help you to understand this. But I think I still feel like I have one more video in me, and I wanna put that out to you. So tune in for part 3, last one, I promise. And thank you so much for sticking with me so far. Hopefully this piece of information was also helpful to you. Again, my name is Leilani. This is The Magical Solution, and this is how we grow.